My boyfriend wrote in a chat, I am keeping her until I find better. Hi everyone. Before we get into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel's reach has been dropping a bit, and one of the best ways you can support us is by subscribing. It's quick, free, and helps us keep bringing you new and interesting stories. Your support means the world to us, and together we can grow this channel. Thank you so much. Now let's get to today's story. I'm writing from a temporary account for obvious reasons, and I've changed some details to protect my anonymity. I found the message on a Tuesday afternoon. Isn't it funny how the worst moments of your life always seem to happen on the most ordinary days? It was sunny outside. I had just gotten home from work, and I was making us dinner because Jake said he'd be home late from the gym. I was humming along to some song on the radio, chopping vegetables for a stir-fry he loved, completely unaware that my entire world was about to shatter. His laptop was open on the kitchen counter. He'd left it there that morning in his usual rush out the door. The screen had gone dark, but when I accidentally bumped it while reaching for the cutting board, it lit up. And there it was. A chat window with his friend Ryan, left open for anyone to see. The last message stopped me cold. Dude, why don't you just break up with her if you're not that into it? And then Jake's response, sent just an hour ago. I'm keeping her until I find better. She's good enough for now. I stood there with a knife in my hand and half an onion on the cutting board, staring at those words. I read them once, twice, 3 times. Each time they hit harder, like someone was physically punching me in the chest. The words blurred as my eyes filled with tears. Good enough for now, until I find better. 2 years of my life reduced to a placeholder, a temporary arrangement, a warm body filling space until someone more worthy came along. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, because maybe if I tell this story from the start, I'll understand how I missed all the signs. How I convinced myself that what we had was real when, apparently, I was the only one who actually believed it. I met Jake at a friend's birthday party 2 years ago. It was one of those warm summer evenings where everything feels possible, where the air smells like barbecue and fresh-cut grass, and everyone is laughing and relaxed. I had been single for about 6 months after a relationship that had fizzled out naturally, and I wasn't looking for anything serious. I was just there to have fun with friends. Jake was standing by the drinks table when I walked up to grab a beer. He smiled at me, this warm, genuine smile that reached his eyes and said, I haven't seen you around before. Are you friends with Amanda or Marcus? Amanda, I replied. We work together. You? I'm Marcus's college buddy. Just moved back to town last month. We talked for hours that night. He was charming, funny, easy to talk to. He had this way of looking at you when you spoke, like you were the only person in the room, like everything you said was fascinating. He asked about my job as a social media manager, about my hobbies, about my favorite movies and books. He told me about his work in finance, about the hiking trip he'd just taken in Colorado, about his plans to run a marathon. When the party wound down, he asked for my number. I'd really like to see you again, he said. Maybe we could grab dinner this weekend? I said yes without hesitation. There was something about him that felt right. Safe, exciting all at once. Our first date was at this little Italian restaurant downtown. Jake showed up with flowers daisies, which he'd somehow remembered were my favorite from our conversation at the party. He pulled out my chair, asked thoughtful questions, laughed at my jokes. He told me I looked beautiful 3 times during dinner, and each time I felt my heart do a little flip. I'm really glad I met you, he said as we walked back to my car after dinner. This might sound crazy, but I feel like I've known you forever. I know what you mean, I said. And I did. There was an ease between us that usually took months to develop. He kissed me that night, gentle and sweet, and I felt like I was floating. When I got home, there was already a text from him. I had an amazing time tonight. When can I see you again? The next few months were a whirlwind. We fell into a relationship so naturally it felt like we'd been together for years. Jake was attentive and affectionate. He'd text me good morning every day, call me during his lunch break just to hear my voice, plan thoughtful dates where he'd remember every little detail I'd mentioned in passing. I remember one time I mentioned that I'd never seen the sunrise from the lookout point in the hills near our town. The next weekend, he showed up at my apartment at 4:30 in the morning with coffee and blankets. We drove up to the lookout point and watched the sun come up together, wrapped in blankets in each other's arms. "This is perfect," I whispered, watching the sky turn from deep purple to pink to gold. "You're perfect," he said, kissing my temple. I fell in love with him somewhere between those summer evenings and autumn mornings. I fell in love with the way he'd cook breakfast for us on lazy Sundays, the way he'd absent-mindedly play with my hair when we watched movies, the way he'd send me funny memes during the workday just to make me smile. I fell in love with his ambition, his confidence, the way he seemed to have his life together while still being vulnerable enough to share his fears and dreams with me. 6 months in, he asked me to be his girlfriend officially. We were at a concert, some indie band I loved, and during a slow song, he turned to me and said, "I want to do this right. I want you to be my girlfriend, for real. I want everyone to know you're mine." "Yes," I said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Obviously, yes." He introduced me to his friends, his family. His mom hugged me tight the first time we met and whispered in my ear, "I've never seen him this happy. Thank you for that." His friends welcomed me into their group without hesitation. Ryan, his best friend since college, shook my hand and said, "Jake talks about you constantly. It's nice to finally meet the woman who's got him so whipped." Jake had just laughed and pulled me close. Guilty as charged. We moved in together after a year. It made sense. We were already spending every night together anyway, and my lease was up. Jake had a nice 2-bedroom apartment closer to downtown, and he'd been hinting about it for weeks. "Move in with me," he said one night as we lay in bed. "I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to come home to you every night. I want to build a life with you." How could I say no to that? How could I resist when everything felt so right, so meant to be? The first few months of living together were blissful. We fell into comfortable routines. I'd make coffee in the morning while he showered. He'd cook dinner while I worked on freelance projects in the evenings. We'd do laundry together on Sundays, meal prep for the week, fall asleep watching Netflix with our legs tangled together on the couch. I thought I knew him. I thought I understood the person I was sharing my life with. I thought we were building something real, something that would last. But looking back now, I can see the cracks that were there all along. The tiny fractures I explained away, smoothed over, refused to acknowledge because I wanted so badly to believe in the fairy tale we were supposed to be living. It started small. A phone call he'd take in the other room. A text that would make him smile in a way that seemed secretive. Times when he'd angle his phone away from me when he was scrolling through social media. I told myself I was being paranoid, that everyone deserves privacy. That trust was important in a relationship. "Who was that?" I'd ask when he came back from taking a call in the bedroom. "Just work stuff," he'd say with a dismissive wave. "Boring finance things you wouldn't be interested in." Or he'd say it was Ryan, or his brother, or someone from the gym. Always an explanation that made sense, that I had no reason to question. There were other things too. The way he'd grown more distant over the past few months. How he'd stopped planning those thoughtful dates, stopped with the random flowers and sweet gestures. We'd settled into a routine, sure, but it felt less like comfortable domesticity and more like going through the motions. Sex had become less frequent, less passionate. When I'd try to initiate, he'd often say he was tired from work, or not feeling well, or would give me a perfunctory kiss and roll over to sleep. I told myself it was normal, that all couples went through phases where the physical spark dimmed a bit. We'd been together for 2 years. The honeymoon phase couldn't last forever. But in the back of my mind, a small voice whispered that something was wrong. I just didn't want to listen. I'd catch him looking at other women sometimes when we were out. Not just casual glances, everyone does that. But long, lingering looks that made me feel invisible. Once, at a friend's wedding, he spent most of the cocktail hour talking to one of the bridesmaids, a tall blonde with perfect teeth and a dress that looked like it cost more than my rent. I stood there holding both our drinks, watching them laugh together, feeling like an idiot. "You were gone a long time," I said when he finally came back to me. "She's in finance too," he explained. "We were just talking shop. You know how it is." I didn't know how it was. I knew how it felt to watch your boyfriend light up talking to another woman in a way he hadn't lit up talking to you in months. "Did you get her number?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light, teasing even though my stomach was churning. "For networking purposes, yeah," he said, not quite meeting my eyes. "She works at a firm I've been wanting to connect with." It was a reasonable explanation. It made sense. I told myself I was being insecure, jealous, ridiculous. But that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing him, that he was slipping away from me and I didn't know how to hold on. I tried harder. I made his favorite meals, initiated date nights, bought lingerie I thought he'd like, sent him flirty texts during the day. Sometimes it worked. He'd seem to snap back into the boyfriend I fell in love with, attentive and affectionate. But more often, my efforts felt like they were falling flat, like I was performing for an audience that wasn't really watching. My best friend, Melissa, noticed the change in me. "You seem stressed," she said over lunch one day. "Is everything okay with Jake?" "Everything's fine," I lied. "Why?" "You just don't seem as happy as you used to be. You talk about him less. And when you do, it's more about things you're doing for him than things he's doing for you." "That's not true," I protested, but even as I said it, I wondered if she was right. "I'm not trying to start anything," she said gently. "I just want to make sure you're okay. You deserve to be with someone who makes you feel loved and secure, not anxious and uncertain." "I am," I insisted. "I love him. We're good." But her words stuck with me. Were we good? Or was I just pretending we were good because the alternative was too scary to consider? I tried to talk to Jake about it a few times. I'd bring it up carefully, not wanting to sound accusatory or needy. "I feel like we've been disconnected lately," I said one evening as we cleaned up after dinner. "Is everything okay with you? With us?" "Everything's fine," he said, loading dishes into the dishwasher without looking at me. "I've just been stressed with work. You know how it is. Maybe we could plan a weekend away or something? Just the two of us. Reconnect a bit." "Sure, yeah, we should do that," he said, still not looking at me. "Let me check my schedule." We never did plan that weekend away. Every time I brought it up, there was a reason why it wasn't a good time. A big project at work, a friend's bachelor party, a family obligation, always something. I started to feel like I was living with a roommate who occasionally had sex with me, not a boyfriend who loved me. But I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't know how to fix something when I couldn't quite put my finger on what was broken. The morning he left his laptop open, the morning that would change everything, had started like any other. He'd kissed me goodbye in a distracted sort of way, said he'd be late coming home because he was meeting up with Ryan after the gym, and reminded me he had that work conference coming up next month. "I'll probably be home around 9, he said. "Don't wait up if you're tired." "I'll make dinner anyway," I said. "That stir-fry you like?" "You're the best," he said, but it felt automatic, like something he was supposed to say rather than something he meant. And then he left, and I went to work and came home and started making dinner and bumped his laptop and saw the message that would destroy me. I stood there for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, staring at those words on the screen. My hands were shaking. My vision was blurring. I felt like I couldn't breathe, like someone had knocked all the air out of my lungs and I'd never be able to get it back. I scrolled up in the conversation, reading through their exchange, each message making me feel sicker. Ryan: "So, are you guys serious or what? You've been together a while now." Jake: "IDK, man. She's nice and everything. Makes my life easy. But I'm not sure she's the one, you know?" Ryan: "Then why not just end it?" Jake: I'm keeping her until I find better. She's good enough for now. Plus, she does all the cooking and cleaning, and I'd have to figure that shit out on my own. Ryan. That's pretty cold, dude. Jake. It's practical. No point being alone when I have a sure thing. Besides, she's so into me she'd never suspect. Girls obsessed. There was more, but I couldn't read it. The words were swimming on the screen, each one a fresh stab to my heart. I felt humiliated, used, stupid. So incredibly stupid for believing that he loved me, that we had a future, that I was building something real with someone who actually valued me. A sure thing. That's what I was to him. A convenience, a placeholder, someone to cook his meals and warm his bed until someone better came along. I thought about all the times I'd told him I loved him over the past few months, and he'd responded with, "You too," instead of saying it back. I thought about all the nights I'd fallen asleep waiting for him to come home. I thought about all the little ways I'd tried to make him happy, to be good enough, to be worthy of his love. And all along, he'd been keeping me around like a backup plan, like a comfortable pair of shoes you wear while you shop for better ones. The sound of a key in the door made me jump. I looked at the clock. It was only 7. He wasn't supposed to be home for 2 more hours. Jake walked in, gym bag over his shoulder, surprised to see me standing frozen in the kitchen. "Hey, babe," he said. Ryan canceled, so I figured I'd just come home. "Something smells good." I couldn't speak. I just stood there looking at him like I'd never seen him before. Because in a way, I hadn't. The man I thought I knew, the man I thought I loved, he didn't exist. He was a fiction I'd created, a story I'd told myself to make sense of all the ways he'd been pulling away. "You okay?" he asked, moving closer. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "You left your laptop open," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Something flickered across his face. Confusion, then understanding, then panic. "Babe, don't," I said, my voice getting stronger even as tears started streaming down my face. "Don't babe me. Don't you dare." He moved toward the laptop, saw the conversation still open on the screen, and his face went pale. "It's not what it looks like," he started, but I cut him off with a laugh that sounded manic even to my own ears. "Not what it looks like? You literally wrote that you're keeping me until you find better, that I'm good enough for now. How is that not what it looks like?" "I was just venting to Ryan," he said, running his hand through his hair. "Guys say stupid shit to each other. It didn't mean anything." "It meant everything," I shouted, all the emotion I'd been holding back pouring out of me. "Do you understand that? Those words meant everything. 2 years, Jake. 2 years I've been with you, loved you, supported you, built my life around you. And you think I'm just good enough until someone better comes along? You're twisting my words. I'm reading your words exactly as you wrote them. You said I make your life easy. You said you don't want to figure out cooking and cleaning on your own. You called me a sure thing. Do you know how that makes me feel? Do you even care?" He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. For once, he didn't have a smooth response ready. "I love you," he finally said, but it sounded hollow, desperate, like he was grasping at the only thing he thought might save him. "No, you don't," I said, wiping tears from my face. "You love having me around. You love the convenience of me. You love not being alone. But you don't love me. Maybe you never did." "That's not true," he said, but he couldn't look me in the eye when he said it. "When's the last time you planned a date for us? When's the last time you bought me flowers just because? When's the last time you looked at me the way you used to, like you couldn't believe your luck that I was yours?" He said nothing. "You know what the worst part is?" I continued, my voice breaking. "I felt it. I felt you pulling away, felt something was wrong. But I convinced myself I was being paranoid. I convinced myself that relationships just change, that the spark fades, that I needed to try harder to make you happy. I blamed myself for your distance. And all along you were just settling, waiting for someone better to come along while keeping me around as your backup plan. I wasn't. Yes, you were. You wrote it yourself, in black and white. There's no explaining this away, Jake. There's no taking it back. You told your friend exactly how you feel about me, and now I know the truth. Finally. The kitchen was silent except for my ragged breathing and the sound of something bubbling over on the stove. The stir-fry I'd been making. His favorite. I turned off the burner, moved the pan to a cool spot, and laughed again at the absurdity of it all. I was making your favorite dinner, I said. Even tonight, even now, I was trying to make you happy. I was trying to be good enough. And the whole time you were just keeping me around until you found better. What do you want me to say? He asked, and there was an edge of frustration in his voice now. That I'm sorry? Fine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't choose my words more carefully. I'm sorry you saw something you weren't meant to see. You're sorry I found out, I corrected. Not sorry you feel that way. Not sorry you've been lying to me for God knows how long. Just sorry you got caught. He didn't deny it. How long have you felt this way? I asked, needing to know even though the answer would hurt. How long have I been your placeholder? He hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything I needed to know. It doesn't matter. How long, Jake? A few months, he admitted. Maybe 6. I don't know. Things just changed. You didn't do anything wrong. He added quickly, like that would make it better. It's not about you. It's about me figuring out what I want. 6 months, I repeated. You've been feeling this way for 6 months and you didn't think to tell me? To give me a choice in my own life? You just let me keep loving you, keep trying, keep making myself smaller and smaller to fit into whatever version of me you wanted? I didn't ask you to do that. You didn't have to ask. That's what you do when you love someone and you feel them pulling away. You try to fix it, you try to be better, you try to be enough. And I did try, Jake. I tried so hard to be enough for you. You are enough, he said, but it rang false. Then why am I just good enough for now? Why are you keeping me around until you find better? He didn't have an answer for that. Or maybe he did, but he knew better than to say it out loud now that I was standing right in front of him. I walked past him to our bedroom. His bedroom, I guess it was now, and pulled out my suitcase from the closet. What are you doing? He asked, following me. What does it look like? I'm leaving. Come on, don't be dramatic. Where are you going to go? Anywhere but here, I said, throwing clothes into the suitcase without caring if they matched or if I was packing the right things. I'll stay with Melissa until I figure it out. Can't we talk about this? Can't we work through it? I stopped packing and looked at him. Really looked at him. This man I'd loved so completely. So thoroughly. This man I'd built my life around. This man who had been viewing me as a temporary convenience for half our relationship. Work through what exactly? Work through the fact that you don't actually love me? Work through the fact that you've been keeping me around like a backup plan? There's nothing to work through, Jake. You already made your choice. You chose to lie to me, to use me, to waste my time while you kept your options open. I do care about you. Not enough, I interrupted. You don't care about me enough, and I deserve more than that. I deserve someone who doesn't just think I'm good enough for now. I deserve someone who thinks I'm the best thing that ever happened to them. Someone who isn't keeping me around until they find better, because they know there is no better. Tears were streaming down my face as I zipped up the suitcase, as I grabbed my toiletries from the bathroom, as I gathered my work laptop and chargers. Please don't do this, Jake said, and he actually looked upset. But I couldn't tell if he was upset about losing me or upset about losing the convenience I provided. You did this, I said. You wrote those words. You felt those feelings. You made the choice to lie to me every single day for 6 months. This is on you, not me. I called Melissa from the car. She answered on the second ring. can I stay with you for a while? I asked, my voice shaking. I left Jake. Oh, honey, she said. Of course, come over right now. I'll make up the spare room. I don't remember the drive to Melissa's apartment. I was crying too hard to see clearly, operating on autopilot, letting muscle memory guide me through familiar streets. When I got there, she was waiting at the door with open arms. I collapsed into her hug and sobbed. Great. Heaving sobs that felt like they were tearing me apart from the inside. All the hurt, all the humiliation, all the anger came pouring out of me in waves. He said I was good enough for now. I choked out between sobs. He said he was keeping me until he found better. Oh my God, Melissa breathed. What a complete asshole. She led me inside, made me tea I didn't drink, wrapped me in a blanket I didn't need. She let me cry and rant and replay every moment of that conversation, every word from that chat, every realization that had hit me like a punch to the gut. I wasted 2 years on him, I said when I finally calmed down enough to speak in complete sentences. 2 years of my life. I could have been with someone who actually loved me. I could have been focusing on my career, my friends, myself. Instead, I was making stir-fry for a man who viewed me as a placeholder. You didn't waste anything, Melissa said firmly. You loved someone. That's not a waste, even when it ends badly. You gave your heart to someone fully and completely. The fact that he didn't appreciate it says everything about him and nothing about you. But it didn't feel that way. It felt like I was the fool who had missed all the signs, who had convinced herself that everything was fine when it clearly wasn't, who had loved someone so much that she failed to notice he didn't love her back. That night, lying in Melissa's spare bed, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those words on the screen. I'm keeping her until I find better. The phrase played on repeat in my mind like a cruel mantra. I thought about all the times I'd told my friends how lucky I was to have Jake. I thought about all the Instagram posts I'd made, the carefully curated photos of us looking happy and in love. I thought about meeting his family, becoming part of his life, imagining our future together. Had he been keeping me around at family dinners too? Had his mother known I was just a placeholder? Had his friends been laughing behind my back this whole time? My phone buzzed with a text. Jake. Please, can we talk about this? I miss you. I love you. I stared at the message, feeling nothing but emptiness where love used to be. How could he say he loved me when hours ago he'd been telling his friend I was just good enough for now? Another text. I made a mistake. I didn't mean those things. I was just being stupid with Ryan. And another, you're not a placeholder. You're everything to me. Please come home so we can fix this. I blocked his number. I didn't have the energy to respond, to defend myself, to explain why his words had hurt so much. He knew. He had to know. And if he didn't, then he was even more clueless than I thought. The next few days were a blur. I called in sick to work, unable to face putting on professional clothes and pretending everything was fine. I stayed in bed, oscillating between crying and feeling numb, between anger and despair. Melissa was patient with me, bringing me food I barely touched, sitting with me in silence, letting me process everything in my own time. Jake tried other ways to reach me. He called from different numbers until I stopped answering unknown callers. He sent me emails that I deleted without reading. He even showed up at my office, but I had security escort him out and told them not to let him back in. I just want to talk, he shouted as they led him away. You're being unreasonable. Unreasonable. I was being unreasonable for not wanting to talk to the man who had been keeping me around as a backup plan. The audacity of it would have been funny if it wasn't so painful. My friends rallied around me. Melissa had told a few of our close friends what happened, and they showed up with ice cream and wine and righteous anger on my behalf. He's an idiot, my friend Sarah declared. You're beautiful and smart and funny, and he's going to realize what he lost. He's not going to find better. Another friend added, he's going to end up alone because anyone with half a brain will see right through him. Their words were meant to comfort me, but they didn't, because Jake finding someone better or ending up alone wasn't the point. The point was that I had given 2 years of my life to someone who saw me as temporary. The point was that I had loved someone who had never loved me back. Not really. The point was that I had been so desperate to make him happy that I'd lost myself in the process. A week after I left, I finally started going through the emails he'd sent. Most of them were variations of the same theme. He was sorry. He didn't mean it. He wanted me back. He loved me. But one email was different. It was longer, more detailed. "I know you're hurt and I understand why," it read. I was an idiot for saying those things to Ryan. The truth is, I've been scared. Scared of how serious we've gotten. Scared of commitment. Scared of admitting how much I need you. So I acted like I didn't care as much as I do. I know that's messed up. I know I hurt you. But please believe me when I say that you're not a placeholder. You never were. I love you. I want to spend my life with you. Please give me another chance to prove it. I read it 3 times, looking for the truth beneath the words. Was he really scared of commitment? Or was this just another manipulation? Another way to keep me around until he found what he was really looking for? I thought about all the self-help articles I'd read about relationships, about how people sometimes sabotage good things because they're afraid of vulnerability. I thought about how maybe, just maybe, he had been pushing me away because he was scared of how much he felt, not because he didn't feel enough. But then I remembered his words to Ryan, the casual cruelty of them, the way he'd laughed about me being obsessed with him, the way he'd talked about me like I was a convenience, a service provider, someone who cooked and cleaned and kept him from being alone. That wasn't fear of commitment. That was disrespect. That was taking someone for granted. That was using someone's love against them. I didn't respond to the email. 2 weeks after leaving Jake, I started to feel like I could breathe again. The constant ache in my chest was still there, but it had dulled to something manageable. I went back to work, threw myself into my projects, reconnected with friends I'd neglected while I was so focused on trying to make my relationship work. Melissa helped me find a new apartment, a small 1-bedroom that I could afford on my own. Moving into that space, filling it with my own furniture and my own decorations, making it mine and only mine. It felt like reclaiming myself. Like becoming a person again instead of just being someone's girlfriend, someone's placeholder, someone's good enough for now. I deleted all the photos of us from my Instagram. I unfriended his family on Facebook. I blocked him on every platform I could think of. I was cutting him out of my life like a cancer, removing every trace of him so I could start to heal. But healing wasn't linear. There were still nights when I'd cry myself to sleep, when I'd miss the version of him I thought I knew, when I'd doubt my decision to leave. What if he really was sorry? What if he really did love me and just expressed it badly? What if I was throwing away something real because of one stupid conversation? But then I'd remember that it wasn't just one conversation. It was 6 months of him knowing he didn't see a future with me and not telling me. 6 months of him accepting my love and care while privately viewing me as temporary. 6 months of lies by omission, of letting me believe we were building something together when he was really just killing time. That's what hurt the most. Not that he didn't love me. People fall out of love all the time. But that he'd let me keep loving him. Keep trying. Keep giving. Keep hoping. All while knowing he was just keeping me around until something better came along. 3 months after I left, I was at a coffee shop working on a freelance project when I saw him. Jake was sitting across the cafe with a woman I didn't recognize. She was beautiful long dark hair, perfect makeup, wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than my rent. They were laughing about something, leaning close to each other in that way that people do when they're flirting, when they're in the early stages of something new and exciting. My heart clenched painfully in my chest. Was this her? Was this the better he'd been waiting for? I watched them for a minute, torturing myself. He was animated in a way he hadn't been with me in months. He was attentive, focused, clearly trying to impress her. He was being the version of himself that I'd fallen in love with 2 years ago. The version that had slowly disappeared over the course of our relationship. Part of me wanted to march over there and tell her what kind of man he really was. To warn her that she might feel special now, but eventually she'd just be another placeholder. That she'd end up being good enough for now, while he looked for the next upgrade. But I didn't. Because it wasn't my place and because I had to let go. I had to stop caring about what Jake did or who he was with. I had to focus on myself, on healing, on building a life that didn't revolve around a man who had never really valued me. I left the coffee shop without finishing my work, without letting him see me. I went home to my little apartment and I cried, but this time it was different. I wasn't crying for what I'd lost. I was crying for what I'd never really had. I was crying for the version of our relationship that had only existed in my head, for the future I'd imagined that had never been real. And then I was done crying. I looked around my apartment at the life I'd been building on my own. I thought about the promotion I'd gotten at work because I'd been able to focus on my career instead of managing someone else's emotional distance. I thought about the friendships I'd rekindled, the hobbies I'd picked up, the version of myself I'd been rediscovering. I realized something in that moment. I didn't need Jake to end up alone or to realize what he'd lost for me to move forward. I didn't need revenge or vindication or for him to come crawling back. I didn't need him to suffer. I just needed to keep choosing myself. 6 months after leaving Jake, I was thriving. I'd gotten another promotion, started taking a pottery class, something I'd always wanted to try but never had time for when I was so focused on him, and reconnected with parts of myself I'd forgotten existed. I started dating again, casually at first. Nothing serious, just reminding myself that I was worthy of attention and affection. Some dates were terrible, some were fine, and some were actually fun. But I wasn't looking for anything serious. I was just learning how to enjoy my own company, how to be okay with being alone, how to not need someone else to feel complete. Then I met Daniel at a friend's art gallery opening. He was a graphic designer, funny and kind, with an easy smile and genuine interest in other people. We talked for hours about art and music and travel. He asked for my number, and I gave it to him without the anxiety I'd felt with Jake, without the need to prove myself or be perfect. Our first date was simple coffee and a walk through the park. He asked about my life, my interests, my dreams. He told me about his work, his family, his rescue dog. And when the date ended, he said, "I'd really like to see you again if you're interested." "I think I'd like that," I said, and I meant it. Things with Daniel developed slowly, naturally. He didn't rush me or pressure me. When I told him I'd been hurt before and needed to take things slow, he said, "I'm not going anywhere. Take all the time you need." And he meant it. He showed up consistently, communicated clearly, made me feel valued without making me feel obligated. He celebrated my successes at work without jealousy. He supported my hobbies without making them about him. He integrated into my life without trying to take it over. "You seem different," Melissa said one day over brunch. "Lighter. Happier." "I feel different," I admitted. "I feel like myself again. Or maybe like a better version of myself. Someone who knows her worth and won't settle for less than she deserves." About 8 months after I left Jake, I ran into him again. It was at a mutual friend's wedding. One I'd considered skipping because I knew he'd be there, but decided I wasn't going to let him control my choices anymore. I arrived with Daniel, who looked handsome in his suit and held my hand as we walked into the venue. I saw Jake across the room, and our eyes met for a brief moment. He was alone. No sign of the woman I'd seen him with at the coffee shop or anyone else. He made his way over to me during the cocktail hour. Daniel had gone to get us drinks, so I was standing alone when Jake approached. "Hey," he said, his voice uncertain. "You look good." "Thank you," I said coolly. "How have you been?" "Really good, actually. Great, even." He shifted uncomfortably. "Listen, I know I don't have any right to say this, but I've been thinking about you. About us. I made a huge mistake. I've regretted it every day since you left." I looked at him, this man who had once been everything to me, and felt nothing but a mild sense of pity. "I'm glad you've had time to reflect," I said. "I hope you've learned something from it." "I have," he said eagerly. "I've learned that what we had was real, that I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me. I was stupid and scared, and I said things I didn't mean. But I've changed. I've grown. And I was hoping maybe we could—" "No," I interrupted gently but firmly. "We couldn't. But I love you. You love the idea of me. You love the convenience I provided. You love having someone who made your life easier. But you never loved me, Jake. Not really. If you had, you wouldn't have been able to write those things about me. You wouldn't have been able to keep me around as a placeholder while you looked for something better. I wasn't— Yes, you were. And that's okay. I've made peace with it. I've moved on. I'm with someone now who actually values me, who sees me as a partner instead of a convenience. Someone who isn't keeping me around until something better comes along." Daniel returned then with our drinks, and I introduced them briefly. Daniel was gracious and polite, shaking Jake's hand without any idea of our history. Jake looked between us, and I saw something like regret flash across his face. "I should get back to my table," Jake said quietly. "It was good to see you." "You too," I said, and I meant it. Because seeing him feeling nothing but indifference was confirmation that I had truly healed, that I had truly moved on. As Jake walked away, Daniel put his arm around my waist and kissed my temple. "Ex-boyfriend?" he asked quietly. "Ancient history," I replied, leaning into him. The wedding was beautiful. I danced with Daniel, laughed with friends, caught the bouquet, much to everyone's amusement. I didn't think about Jake at all. He was just another guest at the wedding, someone from my past who no longer had any hold on my present or future. Later that night, as Daniel and I walked back to my apartment hand in hand, he said, "You want to talk about running into your ex?" "Not really," I said. "There's nothing to say. He's someone I used to know. Someone who taught me what I don't want in a relationship. That's all." "And what do you want?" he asked, stopping on the sidewalk and turning to face me. I looked up at him, this man who had been patient and kind and consistent. This man who made me feel cherished instead of tolerated, chosen instead of settled for. "I want someone who sees me as irreplaceable," I said. "Someone who doesn't view me as good enough for now, but as exactly right. Someone who shows up, who communicates, who makes me feel secure instead of anxious. Someone who values me as much as I value them." "That seems reasonable," Daniel said with a smile. "I think I can manage that." "You already do," I said, and kissed him. A year after leaving Jake, I barely thought about him at all. He'd become a cautionary tale I'd share with friends over wine, a learning experience that had shaped me but no longer defined me. I'd heard through the grapevine that he'd gone through a series of short relationships, each one ending badly, that his reputation among our mutual friends had taken a hit when word got out about how he'd treated me. I didn't take satisfaction in his struggles. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt grateful that I'd gotten out when I did, that I'd chosen myself over a relationship that was slowly destroying my sense of self-worth. Daniel and I moved in together after dating for 10 months. It was different this time. Easier, healthier, more balanced. We made decisions together. We supported each other's goals. We had disagreements and worked through them with communication and compromise. We built a life together instead of me building my life around him. "I'm proud of you, you know," Melissa said one day as we unpacked boxes in my new apartment with Daniel. "For leaving Jake. For choosing yourself. For not settling for someone who didn't appreciate you." "I'm proud of me too," I said, and I meant it. Sometimes people ask me if I regret those 2 years with Jake, if I feel like I wasted my time or missed opportunities. And the truth is, I don't. Because those 2 years taught me invaluable lessons about love and self-worth and boundaries. They taught me what I will and won't accept in a relationship. They taught me that love shouldn't make you feel anxious and insecure. They taught me that I deserve better than being someone's placeholder. Jake was right about one thing. I wasn't the one for him, but he wasn't the one for me either. He was just a chapter in my story, a painful but necessary part of my journey to understanding my own value. I found the message on a Tuesday afternoon, and it shattered my world. But in shattering, it also freed me. It forced me to see the truth I'd been avoiding, to acknowledge the ways I'd been settling, to finally choose myself over a relationship that was slowly eroding my spirit. And now, sitting in my new apartment with Daniel making dinner in our kitchen, with my career thriving and my friendship stronger than ever, with a life that feels full and authentic and mine, I can honestly say that finding that message was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Not because it didn't hurt. It did. Terribly. But because it woke me up. It showed me what I'd been accepting, what I'd been settling for, what I deserved better than. It pushed me to make the hardest decision I'd ever made, and that decision led me to the life I have now. I'm not good enough for now anymore. I'm not anyone's placeholder or backup plan or convenient option. I'm someone's choice. I'm my own choice. And that makes all the difference. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd never seen that message. If Jake had been more careful, more discreet. If I'd continued in that relationship for another year, 2 years, maybe even longer. If I'd kept trying to be enough for someone who was always looking for more. The thought terrifies me, because I know where that path led. It led to a smaller version of myself. Someone who had forgotten how to prioritize her own needs and dreams. Someone who had learned to settle for crumbs of affection and call it love. I'm grateful I got out when I did. I'm grateful for that moment of clarity, as painful as it was. I'm grateful that the universe, or fate, or whatever you want to call it, showed me the truth in time for me to save myself. To anyone reading this who sees themselves in my story, who's with someone who makes them feel like they're good enough for now, instead of absolutely right, please, know that you deserve better. You deserve someone who chooses you completely, who sees you as irreplaceable, who makes you feel secure and valued and loved. Don't settle for being someone's placeholder. Don't accept being kept around until something better comes along. Don't make yourself smaller to fit into someone else's life. Choose yourself. Walk away from anyone who doesn't see your worth. Believe that you deserve real love, not convenient love. Not good enough for now love. You deserve someone who looks at you and thinks, this is it. This is everything I've been looking for. And until you find that person, be that person for yourself. I learned that lesson the hard way, but I learned it. And my life is infinitely better because of it. Jake taught me what I don't want. Daniel is teaching me what real partnership looks like. But most importantly, I taught myself that my value doesn't depend on someone else recognizing it. That I'm enough, all on my own. That being alone is better than being with someone who makes me feel alone. I found the message on a Tuesday afternoon and it destroyed me. But from those ruins, I built something better. Something real. Something mine. And I wouldn't change a thing.